Now, the bad thing is this. The parable of Lazarus and the rich man, Jesus doesn't give the explanation, the meaning to it. We have no record of that. And so it's left for us to decide, well, okay, what does this parable mean? And it's left for preachers to take that parable. And they have made a shipwreck of the parable of the Lazarus and the rich man by trying to establish a belief system that says God is going to burn people up for all eternity in a place called hell, and yet they never quite burn up. They stay alive for all eternity in a place called hell. They've taken the parable and they've used it to establish dogma, doctrine, and you don't do that with a parable. You just don't do that. It's not the purpose of the parable. A parable is a riddle, it is an allegory, and it's not meant to establish doctrine. And the problem is Jesus doesn't explain this parable of Lazarus and the rich man. So let's go through it. Let's go through it. Luke 16, verse 19. There was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus which was laid at the gate full of sores. Now here we have a stark contrast, and you're going to see Jesus making a stark contrast between the two. Two ways of life. What you don't want to do is, in this parable, is often people will read this parable and they'll say, oh, rich people are bad, poor people are good. You don't want to do that. And in this case, that was the issue. You had an evil rich man, you had a very good poor man. But you don't want to take this parable and say, oh, that's true of all rich people are bad, and all poor people, the poor bum on the street, he's a godly man. No, you don't want to establish that, but you just, I've seen people do that, by the way. It's almost like an idea they develop that if you're poor, that's somehow more godly. And if you're rich, somehow you're more of a sinner. A lot of religious people think that way, by the way, but you don't want to go there. Okay, Luke 16, verse 21. And desiring to be fed from the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table, moreover the dogs came and licked his sores. Again, the contrast is being developed even more. The rich man could have helped, but he didn't. Okay, two lifestyles, poor man, rich man. All right, Luke 16, verse 22. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angel into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. Now, get the picture. Both died in this parable, this riddle, this allegory. Both men die. And of course, your Bible tells you the dead don't know anything. And it's not until Christ resurrects the dead that they come back to life. So you got to have those fundamentals down in order to understand the Bible. You got to know the fundamental concept about the state of the dead and the resurrection. When do we come back to life? Christ returns, first thing he does is resurrect the dead. Okay, don't let that slip by you. Okay, here the parable begins to break down, and I think you can begin to see why you cannot use a parable to establish doctrine. There's very little, literalness in a parable. You have to understand that. Now, there's this phrase that Abraham, it says that the poor man was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. Now, okay, nowhere in the Bible does it say that when you die, you're carried by angels into Abraham's bosom. It's like, oh boy, I can't wait to die. I'm going to be carried by angels into Abraham's bosom. The Bible doesn't teach that. Okay. The Bible teaches that the state of the dead, you're dead, and you're waiting for the resurrection. Okay. But the contrast is being developed between the poor man, the poor man was a good man, the rich man was an ungodly man.
Is that really in the Bible? What you think is in the Bible is not.